Convocation. This has been a week full of energy, passion, and celebration for each of our honorees. Days like today, we are especially thankful to be a Jewell Cardinal, and I only find it appropriate to give thanks. I ask that you join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for the opportunities, for the relationships, and for the experiences we were able to cultivate during this week of achievement. We thank you for the honorees and the impact they've had on the Jewell community, sharing their stories and encouraging us to do better and be better. We thank you for this day, Lord, that we may not take it for granted, but appreciate the stressors and the successes. In your name we pray, amen.
Good morning. What a wonderful day for Achievement Day Convocation. And welcome. This is our annual celebration of achievement, and today we get to honor 3 outstanding alumni of college. The symphonic band, conducted by Dr. Langston Hemingway, led us in the processional music and our national anthem. The procession was led by Dr. Brad Chance, Chair of the Faculty Council. Our invocation was led by Ms. Ellie Esri, this year's recipient of the Leona McReynolds Cressy Award. Would you join me in thanking them for their leadership? You know, Achievement Day is one of the college's most time-honored traditions, dating back to 1944, when English professor and public relations director P. Casper Harvey wanted to recognize distinguished alumni. In the past 72 years, the college has honored 371 alumni, and today we add 3 more honorees to that esteemed group. We believe that behind great students and alumni are great mentors. I'd like to ask the members of the William Jewell College faculty to stand and be recognized for challenging and inspiring our students to achieve their highest potential. Our faculty challenges students to develop critical thinking skills, to practice ethical decision-making, to engage in complex problem-solving, and to develop effective communication skills. As it did with our honorees, study in the liberal arts tradition prepares our students for a lifetime of personal and professional success. This annual event gives us an opportunity to celebrate individual achievement while keeping in mind that we all require a strong community in which to function at our best. At Jewell, we achieve together. We're privileged to have a number of past Achievement Day honorees in attendance this morning, and I'd like to ask all previous Citation for Achievement recipients to stand so that we might recognize you as a group. I'd also like to recognize members of our Board of Trustees who are with us today. As you know, they play a vital role in the work we do. Would each trustee stand as I call your name? Let's hold our applause until all are standing. Susan Chambers, Russ Klein, Bill Dreyer, John Gill, Karen Mathis, Jim Pierce, Diane Shoemaker, Debbie Smith, Joy Steincross, Mark Stingley, and Rick Wright. Please join me in showing our appreciation. Now Dr. Ann Dima, Provost of the college, will recognize student accomplishments.
Today we recognize not only our alumni honorees for distinguished achievement, but also students who have excelled in their Jewell journey. Students ranked in the top 10% of their class and who have completed at least 60 credit hours at William Jewell qualify for induction into Phi Epsilon Honor Society and are listed in your program. Will the members of Phi Epsilon please stand as a group for recognition? Congratulations. We look forward to following your success. Last night at our dinner celebration, the guest speaker was Time Magazine editor and American historian David Von Draley. One of his best-selling books chronicles Abraham Lincoln's rise to greatness. It was President Lincoln who said, "Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. Students, resolve to be your best, to challenge the status quo, to ask the important questions, to never stop learning. We believe in your potential to succeed, and so should you." Thank you.
The expectation of achievement is woven into the very fabric of our lives at William Jewell. And achievement is a pursuit that stirred the imaginations of today's honorees, leading them to distinguished careers and accomplishments. And it's now time to celebrate them. Because success is never achieved alone, we invite relatives, special friends, and related student groups to stand with our honorees. As your name or group is called, please stand and remain standing throughout the presentation of your honoree. Our first honoree is Dr. Lynn Hogue, presented by Dr. Deborah Chastain, Professor of Communication.
Standing in honor of Lynn Hogue this morning are his wife, Carol Rowland Hogue, Jewell class of 1966, their daughter, Lizzie, Slayton Outerbridge, her boyfriend, and former professor and friend, Ed Chastain. Also standing with Dr. Hogue today are students representing his varied interests and activities, including students majoring in English, members of the Independent Student Association, Phi Alpha Theta Honorary History Society, Sigma Tau Delta English Honorary Society, the debate team and coaches, the Pre-Law Society, and faculty members of the English department. From Gladstone, Missouri, Lynn attended Jewell on a debate scholarship and was active in student organizations. He won first place in extemporaneous speaking in 1965 at the Pi Kappa Delta National Tournament. Jewell Debate still proudly displays the pennant from that tournament, and it's on display in brown if you want to see it. He has many fond memories of Jewell, attending with his high school sweetheart and wife of almost 50 years, Carol Rowland Hogue, who received a Jewell Citation of Achievement in 1986. Carol and Lynn told me that they finished their final exams on a Friday, got married on a Saturday, honeymooned on Sunday, and then returned for Jewell's graduation. Of Jewell, he said, "It was, without a doubt, the most formative period of my life. It was there that I figured out that I wanted to be a teacher." Lynn holds an MA and a PhD from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and a JD from Duke University. He joined the faculty of the College of Law at Georgia State University in 1982, when he helped start the law school. He's currently Professor of Law Emeritus and Director for a master's degree program for foreign-trained lawyers. Prior to joining the faculty at Georgia State, he taught at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock School of Law and had visiting appointments at the Detroit Mercy School of Law, Emory University School of Law, and the law department at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He also taught English at North Carolina State University. In addition to his teaching interests in constitutional law, First Amendment law, national security law, and conflict of laws, Lynn researches and writes on the Second Amendment, LGBT issues, and reproductive rights. He is admitted to the bar in Georgia and North Carolina and a retired member of the Arkansas bar. He has argued cases before the Georgia Supreme Court, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, as well as lower federal and state courts. While associated with the Southeastern Legal Foundation, he served in a variety of capacities from 1996 until 2004, serving twice as its chief executive officer. After receiving deferments to attend graduate school during the Vietnam War, Lynn wanted to serve his country and joined the United States Army Reserve Judge Advocate General's Corps. He retired at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the fall of 2000 after 21 years of service as an Army lawyer. Lynn advises us to learn to trust ourselves and says that he learned in debate how to trust his own judgment. He said, "You know, sometimes in life you realize what the right thing to do is, and the smart thing to do is to do it right then." The college proudly recognizes his life and achievements as a reflection of the ideals to which this institution is dedicated. For accomplishments and contributions in the field of law and education, William Jewell College is honored to present Dr. Lynn Hogue this citation of achievement.
Presenting Dr. Susan Mace Weeks is Dr. Ruth Bax Edwards, Professor of Nursing.
Standing in honor of Susan Mace Weeks this morning are her husband David Weeks, as well as her parents Les and Virginia Mace, her brother Steve Mace, Jewell class of 1979, and his wife Debbie, and her former professor, chair, and faculty emerita, Dr. Jean Johnson, and her husband, David Johnson, faculty chair of art, emeritus. Okay, thank you. Also standing with Dr. Mace Weeks today are students representing her various interests and activities, including students majoring in nursing, as well as members of Mortar Board, Christian Student Ministries, Cardinal Host, Cardinal Blazers, and faculty members of the Department of Nursing. Susan, thank you for this week. It's just been amazing to get to see where you are at this point in your career, so thank you very much. It's just been an awesome week for my students and my faculty because Dr. Mace Weeks, and if you don't mind, students, I'm going to call her Susan because that's what we called each other in those days, was able to engage with the students. The students were able to have that wonderful experience. So this morning I'm going to talk more about Susan's informal experiences at Jewell rather than go through the professional things she's done here. There she was, tall, commanding presence, bright blue eyes, brown eyes, enthusiastic eyes, huge confident smile, brown hair pulled back in a straight long ponytail, standing tall even in the required and humbling pink A-line nurse uniform with embedded apron and Peter Pan collar and perfectly adorned with a hat, a nursing cap that looked like a halo over her head. Consistently well prepared, organized, completing every assignment, every activity, well above and beyond expectations. In the late 1970s, early 80s, Susan was an achiever who would facilitate much needed growth and change in nursing and healthcare, and we knew that. When Susan arrived on campus, Jewell, the women at Jewell and also the women in the world were not respected as leaders, independent thinkers, decision makers. Nurses were recovering from an era of silently carrying the charts for physicians when they were making their morning rounds. Nurses were accustomed to standing when physicians entered the room to provide a chair for the physician to sit and work. And on the weekends, nurses served as pharmacists because pharmacists didn't work weekends in those days. Nurses at that time were beginning to serve on patient care committees, so they were involved somewhat with patient care, but they were never on executive boards of hospitals or major decision-making bodies. The 1982-83 Tatler, your last year, your yearbook, noted that Susan Mace Weeks' achievements at Jewell included Alpha Lambda Delta, Mortar Board Treasurer, Who's Who, Big Sis, Cardinal Blazer, Inter-Hall Council, Vice President, National Student Nurses Association, Harlexton Overseas Studies, Phi Epsilon Society, and a resident assistant. Now, the Dean of Texas Christian University's undergraduate and graduate nursing programs, and also serving in some positions in establishing a medical school at her university. Chair of the Board of Directors of a major Texas medical center, and a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. And this is an academy that one is invited to and represents the pinnacle of nursing. The college catalog, which I still had from 1972-73, for those that year said that tuition and fees, room and board, would be $5,370 for the whole year. So my annual contract at that time was slightly more than double that amount. Dr. Susan Mace Weeks' professional accomplishments in nursing and healthcare, her intentionality, confidence, caring, and communication demonstrate her wise use of her $25,000 education at William Jewell College. Susan lives the hallmarks of a William Jewell College nursing graduate and also the liberal arts college graduate. The hallmarks that she achieved are our hallmarks. Integrity is the first. She is a leader in jobs that she completes. When she starts a project, she completes it with dedication and with honesty. She serves with compassion. She's active in the American Red Cross, has served at the Oklahoma bombing situation and also 9/11, Katrina, and has served major roles in those catastrophes. Scholarship, she is an active publishing scholar. Leadership, she develops her place in leadership positions with her expertise and commitment to improvement in healthcare. Excellence in practice, planning to be an emergency department nurse for her entire life. Susan now still maintains her clinical practice with her other many roles. Service to other, the last hallmark that our students dress each week for themselves, blossomed while Susan was at Jewell. She was a student, and we were having a change in leadership at Jewell, and during that time, the leadership was having a little rocky time in communication with the faculty and all of those things. So Susan, doing what a nurse would do, she assessed the situation, she researched what was happening, and made an appointment with the new chair, and shared a book on leadership with her, and explained to her how she might improve her leadership qualities and her communication with her students and faculty. And Dr. Susan Mace Weeks continues to live out these Jewell hallmarks, perform in this very assertive function, and I am really proud of you. The college proudly recognizes Susan's life and achievements as the reflection of the ideals to which this institution is dedicated. For our accomplishments and contributions in the field of nursing, education, and leadership, William Jewell College is proud to present Dr. Susan Mace Weeks this citation for achievement.
Presenting Mr. Robert Nye, Jr. is Dr. Gary Armstrong, Professor of Political Science.
Standing in honor of Robert Nye this morning are his wife, Holly, his former professor, Dr. Ken Chapels, friends David and Kathy Whitemeyer, and Harold and Robin Neff. Also standing with them are members of the Lambda Chi Alpha fraternity, the soccer team, student senate, students majoring in business administration, and faculty members of the Department of Business Administration and Leadership. About 20 years ago, which I think was about a dozen years after graduating William Jewell, our honoree got a phone call. In April 1995, Timothy McVeigh had committed the worst act of terrorism in the United States before 9/11. There were about 168 dead, and someone had to defend him. That's the way our judicial system works. We call it the adversarial system. And from the day 225 years before that John Adams had decided to defend British soldiers in the Boston Massacre, risking his reputation, his law practice, his family's home, and even his life, justice in our system from John Adams' day to Rob Nye's day requires that somebody be willing to defend the unpopular, the despised, the people we're mad at, the people who have done awful acts, and the people who cannot defend themselves. Our honoree got a phone call from the man who had given him his first law job after law school. Would he join the Timothy McVeigh team? Now, Rob Nye had a new job. He just moved to Colorado. He was married, and a trial for America's worst terrorist would be a mess. So he wisely said no. And then a partner looked at him and said, "Are you a criminal defense attorney or not?" We all need friends like that sometimes to remind us who we are and that we can get through it. So our honoree made another phone call. He joined the team, and in the appeals phase, led the team. And then when every appeal was denied, when Timothy McVeigh ordered him to stop, our honoree was also at the execution. Because a duty to doing justice, that's what Rob Nye does. Today, he serves as the Chief Public Defender for Tulsa, Oklahoma, where over 80% of the 8,000 nonviolent felony charges filed each year wind up in his office. Because somebody has to get ready to defend the people who cannot defend themselves. He has there led the development of holistic or comprehensive defense, making sure that confused, humiliated people on probation know exactly what they need to do to get a second chance, and to do it in a system that seems almost designed to make sure that they do not know what to do to get a second chance. Now, to do this, you have to work hard. You have to read gigantic piles of material with an acute critical focus, and you must write clearly, concisely, and persuasively, because somebody's life and liberty may hang in the balance. Mr. Nye says that there's no doubt that he learned a lot about how to do all of that on our fine hill. With great professors like Ken Chapels, he learned he better read carefully and get ready to make a fair argument. Because even in a history class on the Reformation or on Hitler in World War II, there's a lot that can be at stake too. And Mr. Nye would say, if you're a right side defender on the men's soccer team, you better learn to keep your focus too. Now that duty to do justice has something to do, a couple of years after he graduated Jewell, with getting a letter from President Gordon Kingsley of Williamsville College. I mean, he just graduated. Had the president found out something? I mean, you were a fraternity man. In his senior year as student body president, Rob Nye had joined a team to do justice at William Jewell. It all came down to, and some of you have heard the story before, getting women keys to their own dorm rooms. In those days, women had to check in and be in by midnight unless they had signed parental authorization to the contrary. The men of William Jewell had their own keys and their own hours. It was a time of different standards. So our honoree, like ones before him, asked for meetings, wrote letters to the editor, made the case for equal keys for equal students. And lost. But come from the president of Wayne Jewell, telling him that beginning that fall, women would have their own keys. The president thought that our honoree, Rob Nye, would want to know. Because sometimes, maybe only sometimes, if real leaders keep at it, justice delayed can become justice obtained. President Lee, ladies and gentlemen, the college proudly recognizes Rob Nye for his life and achievements as a reflection of the ideals to which this institution is dedicated, for accomplishments and contributions in fields of law and of justice. William Jewell College is honored to present to Mr. Rob Nye, Jr. this citation for achievement.
Before we hear from our honorees this morning, we'll enjoy the voices of our award-winning concert choir under the direction of Dr. Anthony Maglione. The choir was recently named runner-up for the American Prize in Choral Performance and will be featured choir at next week's meeting in the Southwestern region of the American Choir Directors Association. Have agreed to share some personal insights with us, and they will speak in the order in which they were presented. Dr. Hope.
I was primarily an extemporaneous speaker when I was at Jewell, but there's no time card, no timekeepers that I see, so I'll stick to a script, I think, just to be on the safe side. I came to William Jewell as a freshman in the fall of 1962. Back in the day, freshmen wore beanies, small billed hats with your prospective graduation year on the front. I came to William Jewell with what I thought were very clear vocational aspirations. I was planning to be a Presbyterian minister. When I graduated Jewell 4 years later, I still had very clear vocational focus, but it had changed significantly. I was now planning to become a college English teacher. Jewell faculty had helped me understand my gifts and talents in a way that helped me refine my goal, the goal that I had brought. I married my high school sweetheart, also a Jewell grad, class of 1966. Dr. Chastain has told you we honeymooned over final week. What she didn't tell you was that in order to do that, I had to pass French, second year French, and had an exam the day before our wedding that would determine whether or not the honeymoon would come off or not. Thereafter graduation, we headed off to a post-Jewell future in graduate school for me and later for Carol. I was at the University of Tennessee, as you've heard. Fast forward to today. I did follow my dream to become a teacher, but what I wound up teaching took a turn or two along the way, as you may have guessed. For the last 39 years, with the exception of one academic year in the mid-1990s, when I taught undergraduates at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, I have taught in law school. How did I manage to get from there to here? Well, I like to think back to a drama class that I had with Professor Richard Harriman and a line of dialogue from a then contemporary absurdist play we read in class by Edward Albee called The Zoo Story. At one point in the play, the character Jerry tells Peter, the other character in the play, sometimes a person has to go a very long distance out of the way to come back a short distance correctly. And for many years, I've thought back to that bit of dialogue, which I think in many ways captures my own academic story. I won't try to drag you through a tendentious recounting of all the steps along the way that marked my path to teaching, but I will hit a couple of high points to maybe show you what I'm talking about. From Jewell to the University of Tennessee, at the suggestion of the head of the English department, Professor Herman Wilson. Herman had done his own doctoral work at UT and wrote a nice letter of recommendation for me. I had particularly loved my English courses at Jewell and was an English major. Dr. Wilson's course in Milton, I will say, is one of the best courses that I ever had anywhere in 8 years of postgraduate education after Jewell. Very good teaching went on at this place then, and I understand that it does now. I had hoped to teach someday in a college like William Jewell and emulate the teachers that I was fortunate enough to have here. After 3 years of graduate coursework at UT, I headed off to North Carolina State University in Raleigh to teach as an instructor in English, teaching sophomore English and freshman English classes. A chance to do some original work with a manuscript of colonial American legal writings that had largely eluded scholarly examination seemed to me like a great opportunity for my doctoral dissertation. As a consequence, though, the lure of law, nurtured by that dose of legal history, helped draw me away from English. And I left North Carolina State after only 2 years of teaching and started law school at Duke. I finished my dissertation during the first year of law school, something that I would never, ever, ever recommend to anyone. I graduated in '74, was admitted to the North Carolina Bar, joined the faculty of what was then called the Institute of Government at the University of North Carolina. We dispensed legal advice to local government officials. I say during that period I practiced dog bite law. After 2 years at the Institute, the pull of classroom teaching drew me to try my hand at teaching in law school. And beginning in 1977, that became my vocation. I want to say that what saw me through the twists and turns of that vocational journey was the liberal arts education that I got at William Jewell College, which was in every sense the key that unlocked the door to a lifetime of opportunity. There is a point in Achievement Day talks where the speaker gives a shout out to acknowledge those professors who have meant the most to them in their time at Jewell. And I'd like to do that, even though most of the teachers that I'm going to refer to have either moved on from teaching at Jewell or, alas, have passed away. Dr. Georgia Bowman was my debate coach all 4 years at Jewell. She took us to the Pi Kappa Delta National Forensic Tournament in 1965 in Tacoma, Washington, and Jewell made it possible for me to compete and succeed on a national stage, and Dr. Bowman gave me the confidence and the opportunity to do that. I mentioned Dr. Wilson, who guided my transition to graduate school, but I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Dean Dunham, who's unable to be with us today, Professor Harriman, who taught me Shakespeare, a wonderful class. Both were rigorous and inspiring models. I was fortunate to have Dr. Robert Linder for medieval history. I believe he is now an emeritus professor at K-State. And Dr. William Cuthbertson, who taught me American history. A few years back, I caught up with my New Testament teacher who left Jewell around the time I graduated, Dr. Barclay Newman. I can tell you briefly how that reconnection happened. I was browsing among used books at the City Lights bookstore in Sylva, North Carolina, waiting out a rainstorm, and happened across a copy of Dr. Newman's book on the meaning of the New Testament. The book, of which I was unaware until I found it, was actually published in 1966, the year I graduated. Dr. Newman was a teacher who opened my mind to the New Testament from both a critical and a historical perspective, and clearly altered the trajectory of my spiritual journey. I've mentioned I need to mention also Professor Adams, from whom I had only one political science course. But more than one classmate, I must say, thought I was a poli-sci major because of all of the organizations that I was involved in, which he either sponsored or mentored. Jewell faculty exemplified what could inspire and help me to become a teacher, the kind of teacher that I hope I have become. My wife Carol, who, as you know, her achievement was celebrated back 30 years ago. She's the one with all the brains. And I believe, Carol and I believe in Jewell and have contributed to a scholarship in honor of our parents for the last several decades. Recently, I was very touched to learn that a former law student of mine at Georgia State University had endowed a professorship in my name at the College of Law there. I am thankful that I have been able to carry out the vocational legacy which I feel I received here at William Jewell College, a true calling to teach. I want to say that over my academic career, I have worn many hats. As you know, academics are into hats. When I graduated from Jewell, I wore one like this, although the tassel was a little bit different. And later on, after I came to understand that academic headgear was a largely unregulated area, I transferred to a beefeater hat, which I think is a lot more stylish and a lot easier to wear. But the hat of which I am most proud, the hat that has meant the most to me, is the one that I donned in 1962. It's impressive.
So I
wonderful week this has been. We've had wonderful moments with students, with faculty members, various other people on campus. Dr. Salee, I really am so appreciative of your faculty and staff and the wonderful job that they've done. And Dr. Bax Edwards, thank you so much for being such a wonderful host and particularly the kind remarks this morning. Although there is one thing that I'm a little distressed about, the $25,000 prize. I now have a huge debt to my parents who allowed me to graduate from college debt-free. And honey, we thought we prided ourselves on remaining debt-free throughout our marriage, but now we have a $25,000 debt, I do believe, so we'll be paying up soon. So grateful for this opportunity. Achievement never happens in a vacuum, so I must first start by expressing gratitude. My gracious God allowed me to be born into a loving family with a firm foundation of faith. I've often said I began attending church on a regular basis about 9 months prior to my birth. And it was that early and consistent exposure to the teachings of Christ that have rooted my thoughts in Scripture and faith, and I'm so grateful to my parents for that. Each member of my family has taught me unique skills. My husband David role models stability and makes sure I remain grounded and humble. Our son Matthew and his fiancée Sarah, who are unable to be here today, display consistent optimism and help me see the humor in even the mundane. My father provided a foundation of faith and taught me the value of work both professionally and as a civic volunteer. At the age of 80, he maintains his professional certification and a consulting practice. My mother also provided a strong foundation of faith and taught me the value of a constant attitude of prayer. At the age of, I don't think I should say that, so I won't share your age, Mother. I know that you pray multiple times every day for me and for every member of our family. Your deep belief and the value of prayer is expressed in so many ways, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm also grateful to my brother and sister-in-law, Debbie and Steve, having them here today. I appreciate so much your attendance. My brother literally paved the way for me to attend William Jewell. He attended William Jewell, so I had the opportunity to be on the campus many times. It was during one of those visits that I was visiting with Mrs. Virginia Field, whose husband Thomas Field was then the president of William Jewell. And when I shared with Mrs. Field my plans to pursue a career in nursing, she articulated the value of a bachelor's degree in nursing rather than a diploma in nursing and helped me see broader career opportunities. It was a simple but brief conversation while walking through the driveway of the president's home, but I'll never forget that dialogue because it changed my career path in a way that neither of us could have foreseen. Preparing for this day provided an opportunity to reflect on the influences that have allowed me to experience a fulfilling career. And central to my reflection has been the solid foundation provided by William Jewell College. Numerous aspects of my William Jewell education have played a guiding role in my career, including being encouraged to never forget the heart and soul of my profession, the development of a spirit of inquiry and a desire to seek answers to questions, feeling safe in expressing both what is known and what is not known, and a sense of responsibility to those for whom I've been privileged to care. I recall many individuals at William Jewell who played pivotal roles in my development. Names such as Carolyn Brose, Jerry Kane, Judith Diltz, Ed Marks, Greta Ingberg, Betty Rickard, many others run through my mind. But two professors who will always remain central in my list of inspiring individuals will be Jean Johnson and Ruth Bax Edwards. Both of these women challenged me to perform to my potential while providing a sense and a spirit of nurturing support. They truly felt like colleagues to me during my time at Jewell, and I've sought to emulate their professional grace and kindness to students throughout my career. In an attempt to identify the unique aspects of my experience that encouraged my professional development, I've come to realize that William Jewell encouraged my professional development because it encouraged my personal development. Jewell does not promote achievement simply for the sole sake of achievement, but rather it promotes achievement as a way to make a meaningful difference. Jewell does not promote achievement through merely acquiring skills and knowledge, but through the development of one's character. And William Jewell provides an environment that allows one's character to be honed and refined. I began to think of character traits that were refined during my time at William Jewell, And I could identify distinct experiences that allowed me to practice such things as resilience, tolerance of ambiguity, expression of passion, setting of priorities. We had to get to 6 a.m. clinicals. That was a priority setting experience. Creative problem solving, courageous action, risk taking, a global perspective, and many others. And although I have specific events in my mind associated with each of those traits, in the interest of time, I'll only share 2. I had the opportunity to practice creative problem solving at William Jewell. And are there any biology professors here today? So I apologize in advance for this story. Okay. A rite of passage at that time, and I assume still now, in a nursing program is the passing of anatomy and physiology, also known as A&P. And the hallmark of the A&P lab at that time at Jewell was the dissection of a cat. And as a cat lover, this was not a welcome opportunity, and my lab partner, who was also a cat lover, and I were very distressed. We tearfully but dutifully performed the first act of dissection. We had to skin the cat. And there may be more than one way to skin the cat, but that was not our lesson. We had great horror that day, and after that horror, we decided that there must be a better way to pass the A&P lab. And so we read through the course syllabus and perceived 2 important facts. First, there was a rule that both lab partners must be present for any dissection to occur. Second, we noticed there was no penalty for attendance, or no attendance policy, no points were awarded for attendance. So our creative solution was to take turns being sick. Each week, one of us, we would, take turns to be creative. One of us was too ill to attend, and without our partner there, we were unable to perform any additional dissection. I'm confident Dr. Marks knew our scheme. The biology professors are not looking happy at this moment. Okay. I'm sure he knew our scheme, but because we studied diligently and passed each lab quiz, he never challenged our plan. And at the end of the semester, he approached us with a smirk and asked if he could use our cat as a specimen for the final lab quiz, because somehow, miraculously, our dissection technique had not damaged any of the cat's organs. An additional character trait that I associate with William Jewell is that of courage. And as Dr. Bax Edwards has shared, I think she's shared most of the story, but I'll share my version because it has an important little piece I'll ask you to underline in your mind. Throughout my time at Jewell, I had tremendous admiration and respect for each of my nursing professors until my senior year. And at the beginning of my senior year, a new nursing department chair arrived, and I'll not mention her name this morning because her tenure at William Jewell was very short-lived. But a few individuals in the room will remember whom I'm speaking. This individual came to Jewell with a stellar academic record, and I'm sure she had glowing references. But what she lacked was the spirit of collegial support of students that was so warmly displayed by the other nursing faculty members. Although I respected her knowledge, I was unable to appreciate her leadership because of the arrogance I perceived in her actions. And so at the end of my senior year, I decided to take action. Now this is where our stories differ. Please underline this next word in your mind, after. Underline bold. After my final grade had been posted. I may have been courageous, but I was not ignorant. After the grade was posted, I went to this professor and described my concerns about her leadership style and gave her a book by Charles Swindoll entitled Improving Your Serve. And although the play on words implied that the book might be about the game of tennis, in reality it was a text on servant leadership. I walked out of the meeting confident I would never receive a positive reference from that individual, but satisfied that I could express my concerns. My surprise could not have been greater when a few days later, it was actually on this stage, and so walking up the stairs this morning, I had kind of a flashback to that day. On this stage, in her remarks during our nursing pinning ceremony, she used the precepts of that book to describe her goals for her own leadership. I look back now and realize that Jewell was truly a special place to cultivate that level of bravery, some might say stupidity, in a young adult. Each semester, I now invite students in the college I lead to meet with me in a student cabinet to express their concerns in hopes of not only hearing their feedback, but in a more significant hope, with a more significant hope that they will be inspired to take the risk of expressing their own assessment of my leadership and thereby deepen their own courage. So finally, I want to share a story that I hope is a lesson we can all take with us. A speaker at a gathering similar to this stood on a platform with a large glass vessel on a table somewhat like that. It was a skirted table. The speaker pulled out a bag of stones from underneath the table and poured the stones into the container. He then asked the audience if the vessel was full, and someone in the audience described a way to balance with 2 more stones on top, so the speaker successfully performed that balancing act. After receiving affirmation from the crowd that the vessel was indeed full, the speaker pulled out a bag of small gravel and poured the gravel into the vessel. As the small pebbles began to work their way around the larger stones, the audience realized that the vessel had not been full until the addition of the pebbles. After then receiving confirmation that the vessel was now full, the speaker reached under the table and used a bag of sand to illustrate the ability to add even more to the contents of the vessel. So then, with a lack of visible space, the audience truly declared the vessel full. Until that is, the speaker pulled out a pitcher of water and allowed the sand to absorb the water. The speaker then declared the vessel full and asked for the moral of the story. Several members of the audience called out, saying that the lesson was that there's always room for one more thing. The speaker then shared that the moral of the story was not the ability to always add more, but rather the more significant moral of the story is, you must always add the large stones first. Upon reflection, one realizes that the large stones could never have been added if the other contents had been placed in the vessel first. After you leave this place, you'll forget the stories we've shared. I hope you'll forget about my cat and the names that we've recalled. But I do hope you'll remember one thing. Faith must always be your big stone. It must be the foundation upon which you build your life, and it must always be added first. If you don't keep your faith first and foremost, the other contents won't ever really truly matter. So students, could you raise your hand for a moment? I challenge each of you, each student here, to achieve all you are being prepared to accomplish. But don't ever forget the foundation of faith that you've received at this fine institution known as William Jewell College.
Wow. Try to follow that. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude standing here today. And it has been a wonderful week for me to be able to spend time with Dr. Armstrong and Dr. Salee and Dr. Weeks and Dr. Hogue. And we have had some wonderful conversations, and I've learned a great deal about how much we have in common. I'm also filled with gratitude for the people that were here when I got here in 1978. And Dr. Ken Chatlos, who's seated by my beautiful wife, Holly. And also Dr. Chastain, who was my sociology professor and wrote the book that we used as a textbook, Uphill and Into the Wind. When I was here, I didn't, in many instances, realize what was happening with me and around me and to me and for me. But Jewell, through its liberal arts approach, gave me the opportunity to discover what I loved. And it also gave me the opportunity to discover what I don't love. I came as a business major. My father had attended William Jewell. He was an economist and an entrepreneur. And there was some thought that I might go into the family business. But I think that I knew when I got here that I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer. But Jewell gave me the opportunity to test those other areas of academics and to see what fit for me. And they've given me a tremendous, and I would say insurmountable challenge today, I'm a lawyer, and they asked me to confine my remarks to 5 minutes. It's like telling a Jewell student not to walk on the grass on the quad, or tell Donald Trump to make his hair look good. And that's not political, that's just the truth. He can't do it. But what Jewell allowed me to do was become a criminal defense lawyer, something that I love. And when I came here, chapel was required, and you could find me dutifully every Monday seated in chapel at the designated hour on that corner seat way up in the balcony. I wasn't much of a conformist then either. But the lessons that I learned at Jewell, including, I think, for the most part in my history courses, have served me tremendously well throughout my life. And have given me a perspective with which to represent my clients. One of the things I studied in Dr. Chatlis's classes was the debate between Erasmus and Martin Luther and the question of predetermination. And I won't go into too much of it because he's here and I don't want to get it wrong. But boiled down far too simplistically, Luther believed that there was predetermination. A man's fate had already been determined by God, and that God's grace was already a foregone conclusion for the chosen few, and that a man or a woman could not work to obtain God's grace through service or good works or any other endeavor. It was already written in the book of life. Either you were in or you were out. Well, I don't talk to prosecutors about that when I'm plea bargaining a case. But I'm often told that the guy you represent, he's a bad guy. Well, I don't believe he's predetermined to be a bad guy. There are circumstances in his life, or her life, which have maybe caused them to commit a horrendous act at a particular time. But there are causes and effects that lead to those acts. And I can put in context for a prosecutor or a judge my client's background, his life in poverty as he was growing up, the abuse, the physical abuse that he suffered at the hands of his alcoholic father, the reason that he doesn't treat me with courtesy or respect is because he's never been treated with courtesy or respect in his entire life. And the petty crime that he committed wasn't born out of a life in which all of our physical and spiritual and emotional needs are met. It was born out of a life where each of those things was missing. And to me, that is an extension of the debate that I first learned about from Dr. Chatlis. If I could, I'm a lawyer, so I got to have a visual aid too. So is there a slide that we could put up? I have one slide. Can you all see that? I can't. But it contains two circles. And this is something that was shared with me by one of my mentors. Because of my frustration and my emotional angst and my criticism of the world and my frustration with the way things are. And he drew for me two circles. The inner circle is my area of influence. And at the time, it was the effective representation of my clients. The outer circle is my area of interest, the things that I care about: poverty, world peace. I can't read the next one. Wrongful convictions, the criminal justice system, mental illness, alcohol and drug addiction. Inadequate assistance of counsel. Thank you so much. Dr. Hogue has been helping me all week. Homelessness. All of those things are things that I can't do anything about, to a certain extent. But that inner circle, effective representation of clients, is the one that's before me. It's the one that I can do something about. And part of it is that every case is a death penalty case. Every case. Now, they're really not. And as a lawyer, if I view them as just a burglary or just a larceny or just a DUI, then I'm not taking into account the perspective of my client. That encounter with the law may be the first encounter he has ever had or she has ever had. And their life, as they know it, may literally hang in the balance. To them, it is a death penalty case. They may lose everything that they hold dear. They may lose their family, they may lose their liberty, they may lose their job, they may lose every asset they ever had. To them, it's a death penalty case. And if I think of it that way, and I give them my absolute best, either to vindicate their rights if they're not guilty, or to mitigate the punishment if they are. And I do that effectively. Then my sphere of influence may actually grow. I may be able to be Chief Public Defender for Tulsa County and affect whether or not the indigent people in Tulsa who are charged with serious crimes receive the type of representation that every American and every person deserves. So that's where I concentrate. And it reminds me of a movie that my wife and I saw recently, and you may have seen it, called Bridge of Spies. I won't tell you how it ends because you may not have seen it, but it involves the Cold War and a Russian spy who was apprehended through an illegal search and charged with treason and faced the death penalty. And Tom Hanks, as his lawyer, represented him diligently and zealously and lost at every turn. And the client was completely demoralized and never became flustered and never became upset and never complained about the judicial system or his lawyer. And Tom Hanks, as the lawyer, would say, "Don't you ever get worried?" And the quiet response was, "Would it help?" And of course the resounding answer is, it would not. But the lawyer faces a different challenge. I do worry. And I do worry about my individual client. Because when I worry about my individual client, it makes me spend the late nights reading through the police reports and studying the Fourth Amendment law that may come into play to obtain the best result. So the bottom line for me is I worry when it matters. And if it wouldn't help, then I try not to. One of the things that I hope that I remember is that there are always more than one way to look at a situation or a tragedy. I represented Tim McVeigh, the person who was charged and convicted of the Oklahoma City bomb. Dr. Weeks responded to the Oklahoma City bombing and gave aid and comfort to people who had been critically injured or lost loved ones during that tragedy. And you would perhaps think that we were on different sides of a dispute, but we were not. Both of us, I believe, were trying to reduce human suffering. And I have to remember the perspective of the people who are alleged to be the victims of the crimes that my clients are charged with committing. I went way over the 5 minutes. And I'm going to walk on the grass on the corner. Let me leave you with this, if I might. Well, two things. I also took French, and my favorite phrase was "je ne sais pas." Clearly, some of you know that means "I don't know." And I always got that answer on the test correct. People ask me, why are you a criminal defense lawyer? How can you defend that guy that you know is guilty? Well, first of all, I may not know he's guilty. But something else that I learned when I was here at Jewell was something that Albert Camus said. That the justice of a society is not measured by how it treats its best citizens, but by how it treats its worst. I am so grateful for being here today, and I thank you all.
Thank you all very much. We are a great group of achievers, and we're very proud of you. I shall return. Now, by show of hands, for the class of new students who begin this fall, should we bring back the meeting? I thought so. Thank you all for joining us today. It's been a great day. In just a moment, I'll ask you to stand for the alma mater, remain standing for the benediction brought by Grace Smith, and remain standing at your seats for the recessional. Please stand for the alma mater.
bow your head for the benediction. Let us leave this place with a renewed sense of justice and the courage to live lives of virtue and achievement.